Stanley presents, oh, hey, that's me, The Further Adventures of Indiana Jones. Excelsior. Welcome.
It's time for The Further Adventures of Indiana Jones.
Sharing your adventures is an interesting experience.
Pack your bag, grab your passport, and prepare to go globetrotting with Dark Horse Comics' classic four-color adventures of Indiana Jones.
Jones? Jones!
Dr. Jones, the eminent archaeologist?
Hard to believe, isn't it?
Now, what shall we talk about?
Hey, welcome IndyCast listeners and further fans to The Further Adventures of Indiana Jones. I am Joe Stuber, and right now I'm drawing a red line from the United States, specifically Ohio, all the way over to Graz, Austria, to welcome in my podcasting partner, Keith Voss. Keith, how are you doing, buddy?
Hey, Joe. Hey, Indy fans. Yeah, I'm doing good. Let's talk about that red line. It is definitely a long way between where you are in Ohio and where I am in Austria. And thankfully, no snakes on planes. No spies watching me from behind magazines.
A long distance, but man, we're here. It's like we're in the same room, though. It's like we're in the same room. I got my adult beverage. I'm sure you got your adult beverage going. We're just sitting back and kicking back and talking about comic books, right?
It's definitely past 5 here. That's for sure. I don't need to jump from a plane on a raft. There's no tales of my plane being shot off. And you know what? Best of all, there's no mutt. So I'm happy. I know the line is long, but it's a comfortable flight whenever we're getting on to talk about
you got a flight? You got a flight going? It is after 5 there, isn't it? Hey, by the way, again, thanks to Ed and everybody for the recent roundtable. Man, I missed you on that one.
Missed you guys too. It was fantastic.
You were definitely there in spirit. Yeah, you were definitely there in spirit, and certainly, the Raiders radio team and everybody. Man, that was such an epic radio play that you guys put together this year. Certainly one of the highlights of the IndyCast this year. A lot went on. I mean, for no news, or almost no news in Indiana Jones, there's still a lot that went on in the world of the IndyCast, right?
Absolutely. And there's a lot more to come.
So you and I didn't get a chat, so let's do our little roundtable before we get to Indiana Jones Adventures. I mean, your thought. Here's your chance to weigh in. Like we talked about what was going on. The writers are back and forth. I like the guy from This Is Us. I kind of wanted him on it. It's back to Kep, I think. But what are your thoughts? Where do you think this is going to go? And what's the future of Indiana Jones from the perspective of Keith Voss?
Honestly, I think I'm a bit scared, to be honest. I don't even know if it's going to happen. I
love how we put this in terms of our fears and our dreams.
Yeah, I just don't feel like it's going to happen. And I know Disney spent a lot of money to get these.
You've just answered your own question. There you go.
They spent a lot of money, so but Indiana Jones lately has been like really kind of put on the back burner. I feel there's just nothing coming out for it. They're not even doing any comics. I mean, all of their attention is put towards. I mean, not yet.
Put toward what? Okay, go. Put toward.
But if not yet.
Put towards.
I mean,
Star Wars. You could say it. It's
all put towards Star Wars.
Okay,
and you know what?
But isn't that going to be out of the way at some point? And isn't it starting to kind of get out of the way a little bit?
I mean, once Episode 9 is released, I mean, I think where Star Wars is going to now be really, really prominent is going to be on the streaming service, Disney Plus. So I'm thinking maybe at some point they're going to start investing in perhaps an Indiana Jones animated series. I think that might be the future. Harrison is really getting long in the tooth now. I know he's in amazing shape, but
Isn't Call of the Wild? He looked like, if you got a shave and a haircut, he looked like he'd still throw down, even though it's with a CGI dog. Why is there a CGI dog in that? I don't get it.
Just read the book. Just
read the book. Yeah.
I mean, for me, the movie the movie doesn't look great. If this is the last movie he's going to do before he starts Indy 5, okay, great.
Yeah.
Fine. Let's get it going. But we're just not hearing enough information.
Okay, but I think you've addressed your own concerns. I think you've said they're going to move the Star Wars, mania over to the Disney streaming service. I think that clears the path for the film franchise. And don't you think they just wanted to clear the deck for Indiana Jones before, so they can get all the Star Wars stuff out of the way, and then they can just focus on Indiana Jones? I think you've made the point
Sure.
to alleviate all our fears.
I just sort of feel like with all of the Star Wars mania, with this new trilogy, with Harrison kind of his character being killed off in
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
It's why not then focus a little bit more on...
I think they are. No, I think they are. I think you hit the nail on the head. I think what you're saying is what's going to happen. If you're saying, well, why aren't they going to do this? I think that's exactly what they're going to do. So, look, you and I have said this a million times, and I think you and I are going to get our wish. We want the 40s. We want Indiana Jones in the 40s. Keith, I think we're going to get that. I think we are. I think we're going to get a younger Indiana Jones. So let's put this out there then. Who is your choice for Indiana Jones? Harrison Ford comes out, and then they're, Disney, they ain't gonna wait, 10 years, 15 years. They're gonna swing it around. So in this kind of mindset right now, who's your pick for Indiana Jones?
Honestly,
Gruber, Pratt, who you want? Who you got? Let's start laying some odds here, folks. Come on, we're gonna play Vegas here.
No one. No one. It's
so you don't. Okay. You went, all right.
This is a character.
All right.
This is a character that can only be played by one man.
All right, you disappointed me, my friend. I thought you were going to go for a reboot, but all right, whatever.
No,
but that's what that's what makes this segment so awesome is that you and I, we generally agree, but when we don't, we don't. And we're going to start our own, Dark Knight podcast at some point. So you and I can just throw down on a weekly basis.
The only people that are going to listen to that is us.
The two of us. That's it. It's exactly right.
Go back and listen to each other argue.
All right. Let's talk about some Indiana. Let's talk about some Indiana Jones. We are talking about Indiana Jones Adventures Volume 1 today. That's but look, before we get to that, I want to add something before we get to our review of Volume 1. And man, this has been a long time coming. We've been wanting to do this for a while. If you check out, not now, don't do it right now, but after today's IndyCast, check out IndyCast episode 203. There you are going to hear an interview with Volume 2 writer, not Volume 1 writer, Volume 2 writer Mark Evanier. He wrote Curse of the Invincible Ruby. So we were Indiana Jones and with Mark on episode 203 of the IndyCast. If you want to catch my full interview with Mark, where we talk about so much more beyond the world of Indiana Jones, that is on episode 53 of Comic Book Central at comicbookcentral.net. So we're not quite there yet with our review of these digest-size Indiana Jones Dark Horse books. We're in Volume 1 right now, but you can check that out if you haven't already. So some chats with the writer of Volume 2 on IndyCast 203, Comic Book Central 53. You want to check those out if you haven't already. But after today, right, Keith? Listen to us right now, right?
That's right. And big congratulations to you on 300 episodes of Comic Book Central.
Thank you, my friend.
On your anniversary. Congratulations. Many more. The show has just skyrocketed and took off, and
Thank
it's just
you.
You've done some amazing work there. If you guys also want to listen to, actually not listen, but look at a copy interview with Volume 1 writer Philip Galat from 2008, along with the Tomb of the Gods writer Rob Williams, you can find that dual interview at theraider.net. And we're working on an audio update with those two gentlemen. So as always, stay tuned to the further adventures of Indiana Jones here on the IndyCast. And hopefully we can get those guys into the Ravens
nest. Yeah, let's knock back a few of them. We're gonna see what we can work on. We ain't done with this comic book stuff yet. Are you kidding me? We got some. We still got some miles. We got some mileage. We got some years to go yet for this. But today, Keith, it is all about Indiana Jones Adventures Volume 1. That is the book that started the all-ages, digest-sized adventures of Indiana Jones at Dark Horse. We're going to be talking about that adventure today. All right, that is Indiana Jones Adventures Volume 1. We're going to spoil it if you haven't read it yet. I actually saw on Facebook somebody, we posted this, said, hey, get your comments into us, and somebody had written in, hey, I didn't even know this existed. So, okay, if you didn't know this existed, it exists. There's 2 volumes of it. They're awesome. Spoiler alert, we're going to tell you that right now. But we are going to spoil the plot. We're going to tell you what's happening. So if you haven't read it yet, if you want to read along with us, or if you just want to push pause and then go read it, it's a pretty quick read, right, Keith? I mean, it's all ages adventure.
I mean, for quite a decent sized digest story, it is a quick read. But boy, do you get a lot going on in this little thing.
Action packed, to say the least.
For sure.
All right, why don't you give us the creative team behind Indiana Jones Adventures Volume 1?
Absolutely. So we got this This digest-sized adventure published by Dark Horse Comics, released June 25th, 2008. Oh my goodness, I can't believe 11 years ago, this thing.
Wow. We're old.
Creative team, we got the writer of Philip Galatz, the artist Ethan Beavers, the colorist Rhonda Pattison, and the letterer Michael Heisler. And what do you say we talk about that cover first?
Oh yeah, it is a great. You know what's so cool about these things too is I love that these remind me of, like, remember the old Archie Comics digest where they would
absolutely.
like you'd find them in like some supermarkets or something like that, but like they're like these, like they would jam pack these things. Or even I think DC did a bunch. Too, back in the day. I remember like Justice League and Superman and Batman. There were so many different ones like that. I love these little pocket-sized digest things.
Me too. I remember I was so excited when I found out that this was coming up. But I just spoke about the Archie Digest.
Did you really?
With some of my students, because they said that one of their favorite shows is Riverdale, and I said, "Oh, have you guys ever heard of
no,
the Archie
for
comics?"
listeners, you teach English. You teach English over in Austria. Like you, so you got you and Ed always were comic books in pop culture.
Exactly. Absolutely. And I got a lot of younger students, and I do a lot of conversation in English with them, and they mentioned that one of their favorite shows is Riverdale, and I said, "Oh, did you ever hear of the Archie comics?" And they looked at me like I had
no
two
way.
heads.
No way. So like they knew it was a show, but they didn't know it was based on like Archie comics.
No idea, and that definitely made me feel a bit older. So no, it definitely reminds me of the old days when you're with your mom and done food shopping for the week or.
Like $1, right?
Exactly. You're gonna
$1, 60 cents or something like that. It was a little bit more than a regular comic book, but you got like a bunch of stories in it. And this one is definitely action packed. So this took us both back, right?
Absolutely. No, I love this. I love these little things. And like I said, I have both of these. I was so excited when I saw that they were coming out. I had already been living in Austria at that point. I'd moved there. I moved here in 2008. So I was really excited to see that there was actually some other Indiana Jones stuff coming out besides Crystal Skull. It's like, oh, cool, they're coming out with some more comics again.
Okay, right.
Really,
let's put this into perspective time-wise, because if somebody's just joining us now, or if they're just getting into the world of Indiana Jones now, this came out at the height of the return of Indiana Jones, right? So this is, remember in 2008, it's like the IndyCast was like in its infancy. Like we were all like Jones and for news, pardon the pun. But like we were, and then we got the movie, and then we got comic books, and then we thought, yes, like another decade of Indiana Jones goodness.
We're getting more.
Yeah, we got some.
I mean, I would have loved to have closed out maybe a mini trilogy of these adventure digests. But I mean, I'm super happy with that we even got 2 volumes of it, because they're both quite fantastic. They're really, really adventures.
Solid gold. Well, you know my favorite part, right?
Belloc.
Well, okay, I like Belloc, but come on, page 1, Keith. Page 1, first image.
We get it.
It's Indiana Jones in the snow, right?
Yeah. Which is, I know, something that you wanted to see for so long, and you get it here.
It is. We get it in like the further adventures. We get those adventures. Remember the Yeti, and it was like shaking a bridge, and it was like Abner, and like all these different things. And we talk about that on the IndyCast. We talked about it on the round table. It's like, he's blowing a saxophone in Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, and there's but the driving part, like that was all kind of cool.
Whoa! Good Lord! This is not as you said it would be, Dr. Jones.
I got it back for you, didn't I?
Yes, but for how long? Morning, Pete. Good driving.
It's not my first time, you know.
But man, we just want like that. Oh boy, I'm not even going to get it. We talk. If you haven't heard it, go check out the round table. We talk, but this is probably why I really, really like this adventure. Is that it does start with Indiana Jones in the snow. It reminds me of like almost like in Nepal, like 1936 when he was at the base of the mountain. Because remember, like in the original screenplay, I think for Raiders was that gag from Temple of Doom where he goes out the plane in the raft. That was supposed to be in Raiders, where he goes down the mountain in Nepal, right?
That's
and
right.
He ends up crashing into Marion's.
Bar. We were supposed to get a lot more action before he even gets to the Raven Bar.
Yeah. But right off the bat, we go in and we've got, again, another one of our favorite, so many callbacks, another one of our favorite characters in this adventure right off the bat, right?
Yeah, we get Marcus right away, winter of 1930, meeting in Sweden. This digest, man, there's so much going on here and so many cool callbacks to Raiders. It's actually laid out very much like Raiders, down to the point where you get the kind of an opening adventure. You get, of course, mention of Forrestal right in the beginning.
This is it. This is where Forrestal cashed in.
A friend of yours?
A competitor. He was good. He was very, very good.
Forrestal, yeah. How about that fireplace? Almost like in Marion's bar, right? Like even that fire scene. And we get an amazing depiction by the artwork. We're talking about the artwork by Ethan Beavers. But don't you and I always go back and forth about like why can't they get Marcus right?
Oh, and this is probably one of the. I mean, it's completely doesn't look like him at all. I mean, but. All of these are,
okay. Why you went somewhere I didn't think you were going to go? Okay, yeah, I thought. Okay, granted. Boy, I thought you and I might be on the same page on this one. Well, it shows you we don't rehearse any of this stuff. I thought you were going to be like okay with this depiction of Marcus.
No, honestly, I am okay with it. I just don't think it looks anything like him. These are all very stylized
compared to Further Adventures.
Compared to Further Adventures, definitely takes the cake on it being probably the worst.
Okay, step up then. Okay, you'll give me a step up.
I'll give you a step up. It's definitely not bad. Like I said, of art is very stylized. It's very kind of like. It doesn't look like anything like Harrison at all, but you still know it's Indiana Jones.
Okay,
you know
let's go down that. Let's go down that rabbit hole. Let's go down that rabbit hole then. Okay, so are you a fan of the art? Or are you not a fan of the art?
I'm a big fan of the art because it is a digest-sized adventure book. Does that make sense?
No. What does that mean? Or like, did you lower the bar or something, or what?
No. It's
okay.
It felt very much like we talked about before. It felt very much like an Archie digest. I felt the art was very similar.
Okay.
It almost felt like they specifically went out of their way to make the art extremely stylized simply because it was a digest-sized adventure. So that's why I went into reading these books as like this is the we're going to get very, very stylized art here. It's not going to be anything super the likenesses aren't going to be exactly the same. I mean, you get that right off the bat from the cover.
See, that's what I love about it. I love the fact that
they
didn't have to worry about likeness rights, and yet I totally believe that's Harrison Ford. I totally believe that's Belloc. I totally believe that's Marcus. And to me, this is the animated series we didn't get.
Yes.
If 2008 had worked out differently. And they had gone down that path, which like you said earlier, I think they will. I think Disney will go down this path now. I think this is a template, a beautiful template, a beautiful 2-volume template for a proposed Indiana Jones animated series. But I don't want it necessarily look like Harrison Ford. But what I do like as we go through is like the stubble, which we didn't always get in Further Adventures. You get that here, and then there's a part where he shaves, and then I thought, and as I was refreshing my memory, rereading this, it grows back.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're paying attention. Beavers is paying attention on this.
Absolutely. No, look, like I said, I absolutely love the artwork here, and even though it is extremely stylized, there was never one moment where I didn't think I wasn't looking at Indy, that I wasn't looking at Marcus. But I mean, these characters have been drawn so differently over the years in so many different comic books. This is definitely a style I would like to see if there was an animated series.
Okay.
Definitely this would be the route I would want them to go. I wouldn't want them to go like any CG or I would like traditional hand-drawn cell animation with this with this type of stylized artwork.
I love Green Lantern, the animated series. I don't necessarily want that for Indiana Jones. I think you hit the nail on the head there. That this has to be traditional animation.
Yes.
Page 4, and we'll talk about the plot here in a second. Page 4, though. Just that shot of Indy, like, okay, a little bit of the plot. He's trying to get a guide. There's a storm blowing in. They can't get anybody to go out, and he realizes he has to go out by himself to find the MacGuffin at this part of the stage. He's talking to Marcus. That shot of Indy, though, come on, you got to love that.
You're talking about the one where he's putting the fedora on.
Yeah, and it's like he almost looks like he has a mask on, and he's saying, Virgil didn't say fortune favors the reasonable, did he, Marcus? That's an Indiana Jones I kind of like.
That's the kind of the mercenary Indiana Jones.
That's your Temple of Doom.
That's right.
That's the guy. That's the Indy you like, right? That's the Indy, the Fortune and Glory, right? Because he's a different Indiana Jones in this book.
And he needs to get there. I mean, he already has.
He robs the British Museum.
He says straight up, man, Forrestal is already there. Yeah. I gotta get there and see what I can get before he gets there.
But didn't you like this Indiana Jones a little better?
Yeah. I mean, this is a dirty Indiana Jones. This is a
down and dirty. It's the Temple of Doom and the maybe beginning of Raiders.
Yeah, and kind of willing to do anything. Like they even say like you mentioned, as long as you're not gonna rob the British Museum, and that's exactly what
it's exactly what he does. And that kind of, again, rereading this, it's been like you said, 11 years. I'm kind of going back through this, and I'm like, oh, that's right, he robbed the British Museum. Like,
it really, I have to say,
there's no getting around that.
Oh no.
But I mean, for good reason.
Definitely nailed the Indiana Jones of this time period. He definitely nailed the character.
Yeah.
I do feel that
okay.
Like I said, you get it down and dirty Indiana Jones in this story, even though it is this digest is for all ages. It's mostly for kids.
Yeah.
I mean, and still you get a gritty. It can be done, people.
Okay, so that takes us down a slightly different rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Do you want, for the reboot, the eventual reboot that I am convinced we will get, that you are tentative that we will get from Disney, do you want this Indy or do you want 1940s Indy? Seasoned, the soldier Indy who's going off in adventures. Which one would you prefer? Or maybe different time period Indies?
Well, I mean, I would prefer, if we were to get an animated series, I would want this Indy.
No, straight up live action. Straight up live action. Yeah, reboot with Chris Pratt comes in and he's Indiana Jones.
I want raw soldier Indy.
Oh, you want 40s Indy still?
I want 40s Indy.
All right, okay. But for animated series, this Indy.
Yes.
Fair enough.
Actually, because I think it opens up the world a lot more to learn about the character at that age. More adventures. I don't know. I prefer that type of Indy as opposed to when we get the movies. We want to take specific little points of Indy's life and then learn about where he's been and what he's doing. Okay. These adventures can take place at any time. They don't necessarily need to be nailed down. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I know exactly what you're saying, and that brings up a very good point, because maybe the animated series could jump through the timelines.
Absolutely.
Maybe one episode it's this, maybe another episode it's 1947.
Absolutely.
Maybe another episode and they're bookended. I remember when, and then all of a sudden it's like 1955 or whatever.
The movies were sort of painted into a corner. At least now, since Harrison is still playing the character, we're painted into a corner. He's getting older. We need to put him into later years. That's just how it is. With animation, you can go anywhere. You can do anything. You could take an adventure from any point in his life, and
Oh, okay.
It still works.
Yeah, I like where this is going. I like where this is going. Quick rabbit hole. Quick rabbit hole. Do you de-age Harrison Ford in Indy 5? For a flashback. For a flashback.
No.
Okay.
No.
Fair enough. Let's move on.
No de-age.
That's fine. That's all I need to know. I just want to get your input on that. Let's talk about the plot here. Look, a crossover Indiana Jones meets Thor.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much.
Is that what we got?
Much. That's pretty much what we got here. I do like. I mean,
run down the plot for us. Give us a little bit of plot details. He's trying to get to this. Okay, so he's trying to get to this. I don't want to call it a temple, but it's what exactly? Where's he headed here?
Yeah, I guess it is sort of a temple. It's a temple that's underneath an old church, I guess.
That sounds familiar. That sounds a little familiar.
Yeah, exactly. And so he basically gets goes underneath there. It's in Old Uppsala in competition with Forrestal, archaeology team from the British Museum. He's unable to get any guides. Of course, it's during a blizzard. He sets out alone on foot. He gets a little bit of a pointed in the right direction from Marcus. Once he gets to that church, he discovers a nearby cave entrance. No sign of Forrestal, but there is someone else there.
Yeah.
There's someone else there. British archaeologist Teresa Lawrence, who's trapped in a pit, which seems to happen to her quite often, apparently.
What'd you think of her? She's a pretty cool character. I kind of like this character.
I like her, too. I definitely like her, too.
Isn't she very, I don't want to say Marion-like, but certainly a good counterpart to Indiana Jones?
She's definitely very different from any of a lot of the other counterparts, women love interests that we've seen in the movies.
Right.
I really.
Well, she's his British counterpart. Like she's like almost like the Tomb Raider to Indiana Jones. We always see Tomb Raider, but like this is kind of like who we get. Although, like you said, she does tend to get trapped a lot.
She does tend to get trapped a lot. I mean, but then again, I guess you could say the same thing about Indy. He tends to get trapped a lot as well.
Again, a fair point.
And this is a little bit of a theory that we have about Teresa Lawrence that we'll get into a bit later. That she could perhaps be related to Lawrence of Arabia, T.E. Lawrence.
That's going to come up. Yeah, that's going to come up in a review.
Later from our good friend Chris.
Chris in the UK, that's right.
Yeah, we'll get into that a bit later. But so basically, she is trapped in this pit. Indy helps her out. Finds out that he has quite a reputation for grave robbery. His reputation is definitely precedes him. But Lawrence proposes to wait for a full team to properly document this find, while Indy simply says, you know what, I'm just going to go take what I can right now. I don't feel like waiting for anybody, ready to claim any artifacts. They start discussing some Norse cosmology as they descend down into these rooms. They get startled along the way by a skeleton dressed as an Alfar marionette, which is very creepy for a kid's digest.
But it's Indiana Jones, man. You got to have skeletons and creepy skeletons. And that tips Indy off to something else. And look, we're talking about giants, Ragnarok, Midgard. This all seems very familiar, right? Wouldn't you like to see Indiana Jones and the Hammer of Thor or something like? Shouldn't that be a thing? Because didn't the original Captain America movie kind of play out like an Indiana Jones movie where you had the Tesseract and. But all that stuff was tied in because that came from Midgard, and like they really tied that in there. And I see some of that playing out here. I wonder if like some of the Marvel writers were they looking at Indiana Jones Adventures Volume 1?
I like that, but I really like what they did in this. They kind of kept it relatively simple, and from the Norse mythology, they actually. They went the berserker route, which I loved.
Yeah.
I really love that. Okay, so it kind of fits in with the time period, with what the Nazis kind of want. They maybe want to try out some super soldier stuff, and they
tying it back to Captain America. You just had it back to Captain.
Yeah.
But doesn't that sort of doesn't it have a feel to it?
It absolutely does.
Yeah,
absolutely does.
Yeah, because you're talking about super soldiers.
Sure, and I mean, in that scene where the Nazi youth. Kind of like downs that little potion and turns into a muscle-bound berserker.
Yeah,
was one of my favorite parts of the book. The only thing, of course, again, it being a kid's digest comic.
All ages. It says all ages. It says all ages.
All ages. But I mean, I think that's what might have held them back from like, okay, this guy's going berserk and he's going out and killing people, and one bullet stops this guy. I would have preferred to see maybe like a panel where like it took 10 Nazis opening up on this guy with machine guns to finally put him down, not just one bullet.
That would have taken you out of all ages.
That would have taken you out of all ages. I'm just saying, as if one bullet is only going to be able to take down like this thing, it's kind of not really the best super soldier serum then. What I'm saying? But I mean, really, if I'm nitpicking.
Yeah. But what's cool about this plot is like everybody's kind of shady. Marcus isn't. Marcus is pretty straight arrow, but everybody's kind of shady in this. Indiana Jones is shady. Teresa's shady. Obviously, Belloc is shady. Belloc comes back into this. But everybody, she finds the ring in this tomb we're at, and she leaves Indy basically what Belloc did to Indy and Raiders. I hate to leave you in that place all alone, and he seals him in the chamber, and he's got to find a way out. So again, like you said earlier, very reminiscent of Raiders. She knows he's Indiana Jones. She knows he'll get out, but she just needs to get some lead time. So she goes, and then obviously, a man in the shadows. Who could that be? Obviously gets so. But what happens is, and here's the thing: Indy gets this scroll. And it's Marcus. That's what I love about this. Is Marcus is the one that figures out the scroll is the treasure.
Yeah.
Everyone else thinks this ring is the treasure, and Marcus knows the scroll is the treasure.
Absolutely. And who comes calling for that scroll, of course, and he gets finally revealed is Rene Belloc.
Well, they call him Baloche.
Belloc.
Yeah, and I love that they bring all this in. Again, there's so many adventures. There's so many stories. People are like, what can you do with Indiana Jones?
They're setting up a history. We already know from Raiders that Belloc and Indy have a history.
Yeah.
We get to see a little bit of that here, which is something that Indy fans have been craving since Raiders. We wanted to see come on. We've all wanted to see a little bit more of their adventures together or against each other. Let's just say. I mean, you just see immediately from that first moment when Belloc shows up. We know that there is just these guys have been.
There's a history.
Yeah, these guys have
the
been
way Indy says it, Belloc.
Each other.
Yeah,
exactly.
That one word, that one name, says so much.
Yeah, we learn why Indy knows that Belloc would be able to sell the headpiece. Sorry, not the headpiece. The idol.
Yeah.
In Marrakesh, because that's exactly what he does in this book.
Right.
They have to go to Marrakesh, and it's really it's great. It's all these little things that are touched on. It's not overly done. It's not they're not beating you on the head. This story flows very, very perfectly. The story flows perfectly.
And I love that Teresa, so she takes the ring, she takes it back to the British Museum. Indy's still thinking the ring is the treasure, so he wants to see. He literally goes and hides out in the British Museum after hours and tries to rob the place.
And you get some pretty good history lessons throughout this whole thing too. Like even the tour guide and stuff. They definitely give which is pretty cool. You get a lot of exposition here.
Yeah, and so I mean, it's just a great back and forth. But like we said, basically Marcus is the one that figures out that the scroll is the treasure, and so and we end up on the road. We're on the road to Morocco. We're on the road to Marrakesh.
This is where you find out that Belloc is in league with the Nazis, right?
Oh, this is where it starts. I don't know if it's where it starts, but it's certainly. Some of the seeds are planted here. Look, and we talk about some of these action sequences too. You talk about the super soldier serum. He uses the scroll.
Odin's men,
right.
berserkers.
Right. And so apparently Belloc knows how to concoct formulas or something. I don't know how that's kind of taken care of in a couple of panels. But yeah, this Nazi soldier knocks back this serum. He becomes this berserker. But one thing I love about this is these fight sequences that are fleshed out, because it's very difficult. We've talked about this many times in a comic book format, how difficult it is to bring the action of an Indiana Jones film into a comic book world. And I think Ethan Beavers does that. And one thing I really like is when...
It has space to breathe.
It does. To breathe. There's panel after panel after panel of just no dialogue, of just letting the action go forth, and that's pretty cool in this digest format. But I love the one aspect where he just like takes this Nazi out with one punch, and the onomatopoeia in it is Krakow.
Yeah. Yes.
I mean, how brilliant is that to just take history and just go, you know what? Let's use that as a device. Let's use that as a comic book device to just, I don't know, is there a history lesson there? Maybe somebody doesn't get the history, obviously with Krakow in Poland, we know, about again, you go back to the 30s and just its close proximity to Auschwitz, and just to be able to take that device and use that as an onomatopoeia for the punching sound of
And gun sounds too.
Defeating the Nazi, right?
Yeah.
This book is just filled with little nuances like that.
Yeah,
that just go back and reread it every time. It's almost like every time you reread it, you just get a little something else out of it. I just love that they did that.
In the background, I mean, again, just to go back to talk about the art too, yeah, very stylized. But if you go back and look at some of the backgrounds and some of the detail and some of the background characters and just the way the expressions on people's faces and the colors, this is a beautifully drawn book. And also
see,
just from the...
I get Harrison Ford from it. I really do.
I do too, even though, like I said, even though it's not exactly his likeness,
right.
I do believe I'm seeing Indiana Jones on the page here.
That's the thing. It's that character, and I just a lot of it
evokes
evokes
of the character, and that comes from good writing.
Yeah. It's that Harrison that we love from Temple of Doom. It's that Harrison that we love from the beginning of Raiders. It's all throughout this book. It even evokes the basket chase. I kind of got a sense of that, where there's the misdirection.
Yes.
That's played out. There's so many elements of Raiders. You could tell the creators behind this book loved Raiders of the Lost Ark. Let's put it that way.
You mean once he was trapped like in that maze of the back streets when he was on the horse?
Yeah, and then he does the switch up. He does the switch up with Teresa where she's in disguise, and he kind of flips the scroll, and Belloc thinks he has the scroll, and it's not the right one, and she makes off with it. But then she turns it around and gives it to the Swedish Museum.
I also got a little hint from Raiders from when Dietrich says, I'm uncomfortable with this Jewish ritual.
Yes.
And like I get little bit of that
callback
when he unrolls the scroll and they say it's a Jewish, it's you get a little taste of that as well.
Yeah. There's somebody watched Raiders right before they wrote this.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you could definitely tell that this is very much a love letter to Raiders without being a direct, okay. A lot of people could say, Force Awakens pretty much a ripoff of not a ripoff.
I would say an homage, but there's also a template. I think there was a template that was set in place. I wouldn't call this necessarily a template, but I would certainly say if you loved Raiders of the Lost Ark, there's enough in here that evokes some memories of Raiders.
And it's still different enough to be its own thing.
And yet it's a prequel to Raiders, so that it's almost setting the stage for Raiders.
Right.
So it's like, technically, this came first, if you're looking at it from a story-wise perspective. And I love every element in there. Man, if you love Raiders of the Lost Ark, you're going to love this book.
Absolutely.
And okay, so overall, look, I think we've gushed about it enough, but let's make it official. Keith, what are your thoughts overall of Indiana Jones Adventures Volume 1?
Well, that's a simple answer for me, Joe. This is absolutely one of the best Indiana Jones comics that's ever been released. Quite simple to find it. Definitely, if you can get your hands on this thing and you haven't read it before, order it. You won't be disappointed. Everything from the story, the artwork, and just what they were really trying to do here, it's all a success. I really wish the series could have gone on much longer than just 2 volumes. I'm really looking forward to getting into it, into Volume 2 with you. But yeah, definitely Volume 1 is a special thing. Absolutely pick it up. If you haven't already, even if you have it at home, pick it up again, reread it. It'll get you back into that Indiana Jones mood, hopefully for when Harrison is ready to do Indy 5 in just a couple of months.
Yeah, I think you tapped into something there too. You said you got Volume 2, but you wanted more, and I think isn't that what you want? Whether it's a movie, a television show, a book, a song, an album, whatever. I want more of that. Oh, I like that. I want more of this. And I think that's where we went with this. Unfortunately, the world of Indiana Jones kind of, petered out after 2008. We didn't get anything more. And so Volume 2 is in 2009, but once you get past that. But I think this is what we wanted more of. I could have done like one a year. I think that's what I wanted. It left me wanting more of this. I wanted more of those adventures. It whetted my appetite for something we didn't get more of. We will get one more volume. We'll talk about that. But that said, I think you said it earlier, Disney is going to be doing some things maybe an animated version. Oh, let's hope Marvel Comics. But boy, there's just so much out there that's untapped in the world of Indiana Jones, and I think this is a perfect vehicle for it. Digest size, all adventure in one digest size book. You don't have to wait 4 months for the issues to come out. Mm-hmm. Everything's right here. It's kid friendly, so if you got a kid, you want to introduce him or her to the world of Indiana Jones, this is a perfect way to do it, right?
It's kid friendly, but it still definitely has that touch of spookiness. It's got the, tombs and fist fights and in high adventure. Definitely highly recommended. Definitely go out and read this book. But there's just, and also even story-wise, there's just so much we weren't able to touch on. There's so much to talk about. We might even have to do at some point maybe a part 2 to get into some of the more of the deeper details of this story.
I think we need to talk about with some of the creators. I think we're
I think we need to get into it absolutely with some of the creators for sure.
Yeah, but you know what? There is no way in the world that we can ever do a proper review of this book without getting the UK perspective. It's all through the book, Keith.
It is all over the book. The British Museum. There's a couple of songs in here that I didn't quite recognize.
No, I didn't either.
Especially Teresa Lawrence.
Yeah.
It's the UK influence is all here.
But Keith, fortunately, we do have a UK voice right here on the IndyCast.
We do have one, don't we?
Yeah, Chris A. from IJ in the UK. Yeah, he had to weigh in on this book, right? There's no way. I'm glad he did, and there's no way we're putting this thing together without his perspective on it. So let's turn the segment over to Chris A. in the UK for his thoughts on Indiana Jones Adventures Volume 1.
A British tar is a soaring soul, as free as a mountain bird.
No time for setting up a delicate excavation or meticulous documentation, Dr. Jones. Hi, Joe and Keith. This is Chris A. from the British Museum, from the UK, with a few thoughts on Dark Horse's brilliant Indiana Jones Adventures Volume 1. First off, for me, the look of this digest graphic novella is fantastic, and I think it's down to the vibrant colours. There's clear foreground and background shading which gives it a style all of its own. So kudos to colourist Rhonda Patterson from the start for me, for setting the unique tone to this comic. Now, this adventure opening with Marcus Brody front and centre is a great way to begin this for me, and I'll go on record now to say he's my favourite character of the Indieverse, the one I admire most, and that's both versions of him on the big screen. So I was really pleased to see Marcus here.
Well, Marcus, we're on the brink of the recovery of the greatest artifact in the history of mankind.
You're meddling with powers you cannot possibly comprehend.
But it's the fine UK character Teresa Lawrence in Volume 1 who I did find most intriguing. Could we possibly venture a guess that this graduate of Pembroke College, Oxford, was a cousin of Lawrence of Arabia, whom Indy had already met over 20 years earlier?
Hello.
Hi.
Mr. Henry Jones, Jr. of Princeton, New Jersey. Mr. T.E. Lawrence of Jesus College, Oxford.
How do you do, Mr. Lawrence?
Awfully well, thank you.
And please call me Ned.
Today, the British Museum proudly hosts an unparalleled Ancient Britain collection, and one wonders if this came out of this adventure with Teresa setting up the Norse department that Marcus hints to.
I saw one in the British Museum.
But all of this UK linking isn't the main reason I adore Volume 1 of Indiana Jones Adventures. That comes on page 31, guys, and the red line trail map that leads Marcus and Indy to London. Why do I love this page of the comic? Well, if you look to the north of England there, you'll see that the IJ in the UK HQ is clearly referenced, with Newcastle being marked clearly on this Indy map.
And I'm proud to be a Geordie, and to live in Geordie land. Some people think we're bawdy, and we're hard to understand. And they say it's just self-pity, and we're not so very tough. Cause the people in the big fat city haven't had it half as rough. I'm coming home, Newcastle, you can keep your London wine. I'd walk the streets all day, I'll need for a bottle of the River Tyne. I'm coming home, Newcastle, I wish I'd never been away. I'd kiss the ground for the welcome sound, and me mother saying, hey, away, I'm coming home.
Well, you bugger. I never knew Newcastle was part of the Indieverse before. Actually, further research reveals the tune was also mentioned in a young indie choose-your-own-adventure novel, number 8, The Irish Rebellion, and Newcastle is clearly marked on a map in that book in the first few pages too. Now, one day, we just need to get Indy into an actual adventure in Geordieland. Back to this first volume of Indiana Jones Adventures though, and it's really interesting to me that this takes place in late 1930. It's the same year that the novel Sky Pirates, which I know Morgan and Rich have next on their expanded archives list, takes place. I've said this before, but I really hope once Disney get into Indy 5 and 6 to complete this second Indiana Jones trilogy on the big screen, they don't decide to put all of these past comics and novels into some sort of indie legend status to start with a clean slate like they did with Star Wars.
This is where Forrestal cashed in.
A friend of yours?
A competitor. He was good. He was very, very good.
I also loved the mention of Forrestal in Volume 1. Not seeing him turn up only adds to the mystery of this very good archaeologist. Was he a UK professor, for instance? Only time will tell, I guess. Hopefully we'll find out in Indy 7, once we get a younger Indy postdoctorate in adventuring through the 20s and 30s.
Forrestal.
I did think a potential Marvel crossover may have appeared with the mention of Giants of Ragnarok and Midgard as Indy enters the tomb at Uppsala. But what's brilliant about this adventure is we see Indy in the snow again. And yes, Joe, after our chat on the recent round table, I'm definitely up for seeing Indy in the snow come Indy 5. Skis or snowboarding, it doesn't really matter. And Volume 1 just helps to reinforce that image and hope in my mind. Next summer, I've got tentative plans to explore Scandinavia with my trusty fedora and travel satchel, so we'll definitely add Gamla, Uppsala, Sweden to my list of places to visit and tick off on my Travels with Indy checklist from around the globe. As to my British complaints for this story, there's a couple, but they're only minor. First, I'd really like to have an adventure subtitle for this story. We know Volume 2 does have one, but perhaps The Lost Scroll of Uppsala could be an apt name. My only other gripe comes in the London section inside the British Museum itself, when Indy passes the directory and janitor office. I'm afraid in Blighty they'd probably be more aptly signposted as museum map and broom cupboard. But I won't get my knickers in a knot about all of this, unless I'm trying to make a rope to aid an escape, of course.
That belongs in a museum!
Perhaps of note for the interested fan, in the back of the UK edition of Volume 1, published by Titan Books on this side of the pond, is a double-page splash advert for the short-run 2008 Indiana Jones comic number 3, which came out alongside the equally short-lived Indiana Jones magazine, also published in the UK by Titan. The comic is said to have action-packed puzzles and fearsome features, and there was said to be an incredible tattoos and badges set given free with purchase of the 3rd issue of this comic. My feelings with Volume 1 of this Dark Horse series, though, is that it's a great opener, setting the tone well for stories to come. And even if it didn't feel as epic as the big screen indie outings, it definitely did feel like Indiana Jones. I guess, as Dr. Teresa Lawrence might say, what a dashing bit of adventure that was. And this is Chris A from the UK, and maybe, possibly, at some point in the future, the British Museum Norse Department, signing off. See you next time, guys, on your next review. And perhaps we could say, if adventure has a name, it must be Dr. Teresa Lawrence.
Oh, man. Thanks, Chris, for sending that in. We appreciate it. Look, Keith, that may be Chris's best review ever.
I totally agree.
That's my personal favorite review of this.
Absolutely. It is always great to hear from Chris A. In the UK. Always great to hear from you. Thanks so much for your thoughts. Always gives us a lot to think about. I'm glad that he hit on the song, because when you see that when you see Marcus singing that song, you're like, what is that? And
what is that?
Good old Chris was able to provide us with.
Isn't that the best thing about the IndyCast, man? We are just all over the world. We are all over the world, and we just get this perspective because Indiana Jones is all over the world.
Exactly. So thanks again, Chris. And what do you say we check out the mailbag, and we may have heard from some other IndyCast listeners.
Mister, get your arm out of that mailbox. I mean now.
Oh, dear me. I haven't had so much trouble delivering a package since the incident in Vienna.
Well, we also got a message from our good friend Steve from Calgary, longtime IndyCast listener. And Steve wrote, Hello, gentlemen. It's been a while. It certainly has, Steve. In regards to Dark Horse Comics Indiana Jones Adventure Volume 1, I must say I really enjoyed the digest-sized book. Great little story, and you got glimpses of the beginning of Belloc's allegiance to the Nazi Party. Awesome to see the original Indy villain make an appearance as the antagonist. Love the mention of Forrestal also. When this book came out in 2008, at the time Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was released, it was nice to have a story throwback to the 1930s, despite the current Indy movie being set in 1957. It was interesting that clearly the Indy franchise had moved on into the 1950s, but Dark Horse still chose to explore Indy of the 1930s. Totally agree. Exactly, Joe, like what we mentioned before.
Yep, love it.
Steve continues, there was so much little stuff I enjoyed about this book, like acknowledging the Great Depression, Marcus realizing they are out of funds, thinking about having to try and find different jobs. This was a fun little adventure. This series had a lot of potential, and I was very disappointed it only had 2 volumes. Looking forward to weighing in on Volume 2. Cheers, guys. Steve from Calgary. Well, Steve, thanks a lot. You hit on a lot of great points here.
Yeah.
Stuff that I really, we didn't even get a chance to mention stuff like the Great Depression and Marcus realizing they're out of funds, and
isn't that something we always talk about in the IndyCast? Like, how does Indiana Jones pay for all these things? Like, why did they let him do all these things if he doesn't ever come back with anything?
Exactly.
It's detailed almost like Marcus continually goes, "Oh, I gotta come up with more money."
And they finally touch on that here. Again, there's so much stuff in this little bit that we couldn't even touch on. So many little details. Just go out and read it. And he's right. Steve, you're absolutely right. The series had tons of potential. I also was disappointed that it only had 2 volumes, but look, I'm still glad we got 2 volumes of this thing.
Let's look at it. Hey, Keith, let's look at it from the other perspective. Like let's be disappointed we only got 2 volumes. We got 2 volumes.
We got 2 volumes. That's what I was just going to say. We got 2 volumes that greatly enrich, even just as a prequel to Raiders.
Oh.
Like, if you read this book just simply as a prequel to Raiders, oh my goodness, look what you just got here.
That's brilliant.
Okay, that's it for the day then.
Well, Keith, there's your Indiana Jones, and he's telling us to wrap things up for the day.
He knows when it's time to call it a day.
I guess he does. Sure. All right. And as we know, this is not the last time that we hear from Belloc. Belloc returned to the world of Indiana Jones a few years later. But you will not have to wait that long to hear from us.
That's right. We are going to be back very soon with our review of the 4-issue miniseries Tomb of the Gods. But you can get a jump start on that adventure by checking out, if you haven't already, of course, IndyCast episode number 210. That would be our interview with Tomb of the Gods artist Steve Scott.
Fun chat there in the Raven's Nest. Hoping to line up, as we mentioned, a few more of those coming up in the segments ahead. Haven't locked them in just yet. So right now, as we record this, Keith and I are prepping our review of Tomb of the Gods. That's what's on our plate right now. So while we are getting ready for that, just like Chris A., you need to get us your thoughts right away.
That's right, and all you have to do is drop us a line at thefurtheradventures@gmail.com. Please send us a review or record an MP3 like Chris A. and send it on along to us. Be sure to also check us out on Facebook at The Further Adventures of Indiana Jones. We're always posting some cool stuff up there. So, hope to see you there.
So much Indiana Jones goodness at the Facebook page. If you haven't checked it out, I mean, we haven't posted anything recently. Obviously, life goes on.
Always
but
surprises.
I've listened to a few episodes of our segments from the past, and I forgot there's so much stuff out there. There's like lost Indiana Jones artwork. So if you're new to this segment, go check out the Facebook page. There's like crazy amounts of lost Indiana Jones comic book artwork out there that Keith and I have dug up, these rare antiquities that we have brought to all of you out there. So they're out there.
And Belloc hasn't stolen
no,
them yet.
He ain't getting anywhere near them. No. You and I are guarding that temple. You and I are guarding the Facebook temple pretty hard, my friend. Lots of cool stuff out there. Lots of cool stuff headed your way in the next segment. That is next time on The Further Adventures of Indiana Jones.